So I do have some updated setup tips, and don't worry if you only have the Charger 3 because the principles are exactly the same. I recently installed Motorex 4-weight oil in my Charger 3.1 because Motorex or Fox oil is the gold standard in suspension oil, so your results may be a little bit different than mine. On the back of the CSU, up on the crown, we got the serial number. We're going to put it into the RockShox Trailhead app. This is a really useful tip. They also have an app, but I'm on the desktop because I'm kind of a boomer. So inside of here, I put 220 pounds and it's giving me -9 clicks of rebound, which is about the middle. Reflecting back on the Charger 3, we got some very big changes in the setup department. So I'm wondering what's new inside of the 3.1 because I've never rode it yet. The RockShox manufacturing design team, it's not the best, so we're going to make sure our low speed compression knob is fully tight because this one was actually loose on a very low mile fork. Now we're going to move the high and low speed compression to the fully counterclockwise position. This will be the softest towards the negative side of the marker numbers. This is that marker for the low speed compression up here, what I'm pointing to. And this is the high speed compression marker on the back of the crown. If your fork is not lining up, you're going to click this video in your top right screen, how to service the ZEB 3.1. You're going to learn how to put that knob on correctly because it's very easy. I've never had this fork on my bike, so you can bypass all the specialty tools to put the crown race on. You can just hammer these on like Sam Pilgrim. Pure dreams. If the fork is off the bike, it's an awesome time to install the fender and buy the one linked in the description because it's pure dreams. The one from RockShox is pretty awesome because it bolts into place, but it's probably only good for like Southern California non-raining weather. If you've ever suffered a loose headset during a ride, it's an absolute nightmare and pretty terrifying if your bike's made out of plastic fiber. Now, this is the most common reason your headset is coming loose. There's not enough gap right here, and that forces you to put too much tension on the top cap bolt. So this is what you want to see. A larger gap is definitely safer, but it's not as pretty. That larger gap will ensure your headset doesn't come loose as quickly and won't require you to put so much tension on this bolt. Before you install the wheel on your ZEB, what you want to do is look inside the lower legs right about here, and if there's any kind of plastic things in there, they're called torque caps, you're going to do yourself a favor and throw them in the trash can. The torque spec for the front wheel is 9 Newton meters to 14 Newton meters. You don't need to use a torque wrench, but it's a good idea. So with the 9 to 14 Newton meters, we want to go for 14 because if you're riding this fork how it's intended, you want it as tight as possible without being too tight. Here's another optional step. I do this at every single bolt on my bike if I'm going to the bike park. This way I can look down, and if the lines aren't lining up, I know that bolt is loose from some chattery terrain. Doing this on the axle also serves another purpose. If you loosen it up and then you tighten it, you line the marks up, you know it's torqued to spec. Whenever you're installing a new fork on your bike, it's absolutely critical that you get the stem bolts extremely tight. So the step is basically this side, and then we're going to go to the other side and then back to the other side and make sure these basically bottom out and stop moving, because if you've ever had your handlebars move when you're basically rallying through some terrain, it's absolutely terrifying. The air spring on the ZEB is very simple, so this step isn't necessarily required. Pumping about 50 psi in there, we're going to equalize the chambers. Not required, but why not? Inflating it up to the recommended air pressure of 80 psi per the RockShox Trailhead app. Let's see how much sag RockShox is recommending. So do remember I moved the high and low speed compression to the fully soft setting. Whenever you're measuring sag, it's a really good idea to use cardboard that you measured out on the table, because I actually scratched the stanchion using this metal tool right here. See those sharp points? Very dangerous. RockShox is giving us about 18% sag. Typically, Charger 3 I was running about 20, but let's just try the recommended setting. Check out how insanely plush the fork is currently. That's because I put the rebound to the fully fast setting, so do this when you're setting the sag. It's a good idea to put this to the fully slow setting and just feel how different and how harsh the fork is with a slower rebound. Are you sick of those robot advice videos that just give you generic advice? Because this is specific to the 3.1 ZEB. The Otter likes to put the rebound into the middle setting with the compressions wide open. If you were a lightweight rider, 100 kilograms, put this to the full fast setting. There's about 18 or 20 clicks of rebound depending on how you define it, so just go to the far end of one side and count 10 clicks and you're done. 10. Starting with that rebound in the middle setting, we still got that plushy feel coming out of this fork. Now with any fork, it's a good idea to start with 0 tokens because tokens destroy your spring curve. But when it comes to RockShox progressive forks, you really want to start with 0 tokens. So remove that top cap with the cassette tool and make sure you have 0. But I do have some surprises for the 3.1 later. One of my fellow subscriber friends asked me, how do I set the shock up in the parking lot because I can't risk crashing in the mud, dirt, and ice? So it's very simple in the parking lot, you get it pretty darn close. We're going to feel the squishiness of the front, and then we're going to feel the squishiness of the back. So we're just trying to match both spring curves in the parking lot. So my fork is a lot softer than the rear, and it's a lot easier to add air into a fork than a shock. So you just pump up the fork until it matched the squishiness of the rear. So this mismatched setup makes the setup pretty difficult. When it boils down to the clickers, if you're a heavyweight guy like myself at 100 kilograms, we're going to put the rebound and the compression adjusters all into the middle, and you'll blow your mind in how well this works. I'm going to guess if you're half my weight at 50 kilograms, you're going to be full fast rebound, 2 clicks of low, 2 clicks of high, because that's a pretty good number you're going to see. Now there's 2 different paths here. If I was going to go ride with some friends, I would do that setup like I showed you, but I'm alone and I'm trying to feel out this Charger 3.1. So I'm going to put the compression into the fully soft setting and the rebound into the middle. This way you can really feel out what that damper, what that fork is all about with the compression turned off. And the rebound in the middle so it's not too boggy and slow and harsh. The first order of business is to set the bottom out control. And let me just tell you, the Charger 3.1 is vastly not the Charger 3. It is completely soft and it's going to need probably some tokens and a whole bunch of compressions. Just to put this into perspective, my current setup is a middle rebound with no compression and I got a harsh metallic clank. My Charger 3 setup was pretty legendary and I had 5 clicks of low and no high-speed compression with no tokens, and I could not make that fork clap even when I tried. Now let me give you some hindsight. If you go off a 3-foot octaflat like this and you get a sharp metallic clank, just go home, stop the ride, go get a token. But if that's not an option, you can add 20 psi to the fork, and technically 20 psi feels better than a token because it has a cleaner spring curve when it is compressing. The RockShox recommended air pressure for my weight was 80 psi, which seemed a little bit low when I think about the Charger 3 recommending me 95 psi. So let's see what it's like with 100 in it. Now at this point I really know that I need a token because adding 20 psi to the fork I still got a nasty clank. So my Temu zip ties on this fender were a little bit loose, and it's really important to have a quiet bite because I wasn't sure if this is the fender clapping or the actual fork. So I removed the fender and went through this jump line again, and it was definitely a sharp metallic clank coming out of the fork. So at this point it's time to add some compression to this fork. Now everyone's got their own personal preference for setting their suspension up, but I just find that moving the high and low speed compressions together makes your life substantially easier. So I have a middle, high, and low speed compression and a middle rebound. Now getting the right sag measurement with these clicker adjustments usually works perfect. So let's see how it goes. Now after adding 20 psi and all that compression, I knew it was time to go home and look for the RockShox bottomless token. So the Charger 3.1 is probably going to need some tokens if you are a heavyweight rider. So at this point I should have added 2, but I started with 1 because technically this is the right thing to do, but you need to make a judgment call. Were you clapping really hard? If you were, you need to add 2. So I'm going to go up to 90 psi. I was previously at 100 because we just added a whole bunch of bottom out control with that bottomless token. The early model ZEBs had buttons for the pressure relief valves. The later model ones require a 4mm Allen key to open these up. It's a really good idea to open these up if you're doing heavy compressions, big elevation changes, or temperature swings. Whenever making big adjustments like adding a token, it's a good idea to double check your compression settings. So I was in the middle, dropped 10 psi with the middle rebound, and let's go through the same bracketed jump line and see if the bottom out resistance has improved and there's no sharp metallic clank. So it definitely wasn't clanking, but RockShox compression damping feels like an absolute wall of resistance or absolutely no compression damping. That's because the internal structure of the Charger 3.1 is a little bit primitive if you stack it up to Öhlins, Fox, EXT, and some higher end brands. Regardless of how primitive the damper is, you can make your suspension work, so I'm going to play around with the air pressure at this point to try to get rid of that wall of resistance. So I was making a big boo-boo this entire video. Basically, I was going from 80 to 90 psi. So going back to the recommended air pressure of 80, the sharp metallic clank was back with the compression in the middle. So I'm like really getting smoked by this fork at this point. So I haven't spent a lot of time on new RockShox products because I'm a Fox guy. So expect to struggle regardless of what you're not familiar with. I got absolutely destroyed trying to set that ZEB 3.1 up yesterday. So I texted my friend who's been on this fork for quite a bit. And I was like, 3.1 is a 3-point downgrade. So there was a couple of clues in this text message thread right here. He runs 83 to 84 on rocky terrain. And then he goes up to 84 to 85 on high-speed blue trails, I'm guessing. So even me with the correct pump, digital shock pump, I forgot to do micro air adjustments, and that may have been the whole entire problem yesterday. When a fork is extremely sensitive to air pressure, I was going from 80 to 89. 89 was a wall, 80 was like, it was clanking the entire time. After so many harsh metallic clanks on this fork, I decided to go up to 2 tokens, and armed with the information from my friend that this fork is extremely sensitive to air pressure, I feel like kind of a retard because I've rode mostly all the modern RockShox products, and I should already know this, but I'm so familiar with Fox, I made a boo-boo. Now 2 tokens in the Charger 3.1 can feel like an absolute wall of resistance. Turning the compression on can feel like an absolute wall of resistance. So the main takeaway from the Charger 3.1, it's very sensitive to all the adjustments. You should be adjusting the air pressure in 1 to 5 psi increments. The high and low speed compression should be done 1 click at a time, and this fork is extremely sensitive to tokens, but it needs it because of the softer compression tube. Taking my own advice, I went to 85 psi, the middle setting from the 2 air pressures I had struggled with for the last 2 days, with 2 clicks of low speed, 2 clicks of high speed, 2 tokens. This was a really impressive fork.